Okay, I think I figured the whole thing out. I know why they put Shabana Mahmood in as Home Secretary. A Muslim woman in as Home Secretary in a Christian nation. I am livid. However, it's all part of a plan. Don't you worry about it. I'm going to explain it right now. I also know why they put David Lammy in as Deputy Prime Minister. Yeah, I know that as well. And I also know why Angela Rayner, they had the information on her first by using £160,000 of a disabled son's, the grant, whatever, for her place in Hove. I know why they did that, and I know why they held on to the information. I know why it's released it now. And I know it's all to do with Tommy Robinson's march on the 13th coming up. You know what I mean? This weekend. I know why. So we're going to get back from that. But before we do, right, I've got to go through some statistics. I've got to go through some facts and figures. And I've thought about how we're going to sort of present these without you switching off. And it's kind of basic because I'm a basic guy. We're going to talk about gross domestic product, the amount a country sort of earns, you know what I mean? And we're going to talk about debt, the amount a country owes, all right? And there's a ratio called the debt to GDP ratio. And I don't want to get too technical, but when I tell you what it is, you'll realize why these things are happening, why immigration's happening. At the rate it's happening, like 1 million people in 2023, all right? 1,000 people on one of the days last week. It's mental, all right? It's mental. And I think as Englishmen, Scotchmen, Welshmen and Irishmen, we need to know the facts and figures because I saw a video the other day, by the way, of this guy on like some lefty front swinging a punch at a guy on the right. And the guy on the right had an English flag and he threw a punch at him and the guy on the right just didn't move. He looked at him and the guy stopped throwing a punch. And I thought, that's an Englishman right now. That is an Englishman. He's like, you throw your punch, mate. The guy didn't connect. He just didn't connect. The Englishman didn't react to it either. He just looked at him and just pushed him away. That's the Englishman. It's the resolve, mate. Do you know what I mean? It's the resolve. Remember I talked about meek before. Yeah, it's a strong man who has the power to destroy worlds, but chooses not to. All right? That's what meek means. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. Let's talk about debt. Let's talk about debt to GDP ratio. The UK debt right now is 2.6 trillion. It means nothing. But the GDP, the gross domestic product, the amount the country generates is 2.7. Very similar figures. If you put the 2.6 over 2.7, you get 96%. That's what's called our debt to GDP ratio. All right. I'm not an expert at this. If you are, hit the comments. Tell me you know better. All right. I'll read it. I'll comment on it. Seriously, I will. What that means is it's quite high. All right. It's quite high. Now, Japan has a high 150. Bulgaria's got a low one at 25. And it varies. However, when it's this high, people kind of start to not want to lend to us. So it's important that we kind of get it down a bit to make it more favourable for pension funds, institutional investors, that kind of stuff to lend to the UK. Now, we pay interest on that debt. It's about 3.7%. So our debt at 2.6 trillion or whatever, our interest on that is 111 billion. That's twice the budget of the military. And that's the interest we pay on it. We get nothing back from that. We just pay interest. 111 billion. That's a lot of money. That's some big money right there. That is actually. Now, put this in perspective, right? The NHS is 150 billion a year just to maintain the NHS, which I'm pretty much against. But let's just say that's the way we do healthcare in this country. But we're paying 111 billion to nothingness. The NHS is costing 150. Well, so we need to get that figure down. Two ways we can do it. We can lower the debt. Well, how do we do that? We're indebted, right? Okay, what do we do then? We increase the GDP. Right, now there's two ways we can do that as well. Increase productivity, upskill us all, yeah? Help people to get educated through university, you know, pay for education, all that kind of stuff. No, we've chosen not to do that. We've chosen to do the easy fix, which is import millions of people from all over the world, flood the country with immigrants, obviously, and then they will work. They will basically get more tax. We'll earn more GDP, and therefore we'll lower our GDP to debt ratio, debt to GDP ratio. Basically, we'll get low. We get more investment into the country. We can build more infrastructure. We can get people more. You know, it all goes. It's cyclical, but it's failed. Multiculturalism has failed massively. Not just in our country. It's always failed. Merkel said it failed in Germany. She said Cameron said back in 2010 it failed in the UK, for crying out loud. So it's failed, right? We know it's failed now. No government is going to admit to that failure. The Conservatives, this is why I get annoyed when people go, oh, vote Reform in, Tim. You should stand as a Reform candidate. Reform is not the answer, mate. Farage is not the answer. Advance is not the answer. Whatever one you've got is not the answer. Were Conservatives the answer? No. Was Labour the answer? No. No one's going to be the answer. Politics doesn't work. I know you disagree with me. Hit the comments, by all means. You know, I'm about community. I'm about individual. I'm about self. That's what the answer is, I feel. However, let's talk it out. So we've got to get the GDP down, i.e. we've got to get the GDP, the debt to GDP ratio down. Therefore, we've got to get the GDP up. You know what I'm saying? And we do that by flooding the country, which is what we're doing with immigrants. It was supposed to be highly skilled migration. It turned out to not be that. It turned out to be anyone and his small dog. Mainly, it turned out to be military age males, basically, from Islamic countries, as it seems to be. And now, back in 2021, 6.5% of the country, 4 million people were Muslim. And now I think Liz Truss, as I said in that last video, she reckons it's about 10% of the country, which is making about 6 or 7 million Muslims in the country. And I'm against it. I want Islam gone. All right. This brings me back to Shabana Mahmood then, who I've got very little time for. Now, Shabana Mahmood is a Muslim herself. British born, fair enough. But she places, as Muslims do, their faith before their faith in a religion before the state. How can you have an officer of the state who places a religion before the state? Well, you can if you grew up in a whack country like ours, but they would always place Islam before their country. Shouldn't be allowed. I think she's got sworn in on the Quran. Shouldn't be allowed. It's a Christian nation, mate. And when people say in the comments, it's not a Christian nation, mate. Okay, we'll just give it a couple of decades, mate, and it'll be a Islamic one then. Crimea River. We're a Christian nation because of the values we hold. Okay, our rules and our laws are written in Christianity, all right? We do that. That's what it's about. So I would have you cannot be a Christian in government in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE. You can't do it. But you can be here for some reason. It's wrong, fundamentally wrong. And it's going to change the makeup of this. I'm going to tell you a story right now. So I was in a rowing event this week and I was driving back. Long event. Pretty knackered. Driving my wife, yeah? And my wife was asleep. And I was going from like one side of the country, like to this side of the country. And it was about 3.5 hours. And I was getting stopped in traffic. Not stop-start traffic, but you go and overtake and the fast lane is blocked with a car that's going the same speed as the guy in the middle lane. You know what I mean? And I got past her. Oh, you know, it's not a ethnic white British, shall we say? You know what I mean? Not necessarily black either. I would say black British. You know, not a black British, but it was definitely like a North African, something like that. Fair enough. Drive along. I'll be in the slow lane or something, and you know, someone would overtake me in the middle lane. They pull in and they slow right down again. Like poor driving standards, right? Clear, overtake. You know what I mean? And then I'll drive past them, and I'll be, 4 young North African men in a car. Same thing happened. Car in the middle lane. I'm in the slow lane. I have to overtake that. I have to go into the middle lane, into the fast lane to overtake a car that's been in the middle lane for the last, 20 minutes. Who's in there? North African woman. All I'm saying is this happened 8 times. I woke my wife up and I said, "What's this?" And she said, "What?" I said to her, "I guarantee this person in this car here does not look like us." Now, is that me being racist? I don't think it is. I'm not preventing them doing anything, am I? What I'm doing is highlighting a trend. Now, why is that? Because we're bringing so many people in so quickly, they cannot merge with our lifestyles. They cannot, whatever they're doing, is too many people coming in. Also, there is a trend, by the way, that some of these countries believe that if they insure the car, they don't have to insure the person. Therefore, all of them, they haven't got to have a license. They think the car's got a license. So they just take turns driving the car when none of them have a license. There's that. I mean, if they, kill one of your family members, well, inshallah, whatever it might be, you know what I mean? Allah wills it. So I don't want that in my country. I want accountability. I want a secular society. I want a division of church and state. I think that's important. I do think that's important. Now, arguably in the UK, we don't have that. Head of the Church of England, the King, all that kind of stuff, devolved to the part. We understand that. That's why Christopher Hitchens went to America. I'm just moving away now. So why did they put Shabana Mahmood in as Home Secretary? Well, Tommy Robinson's march is coming up. This is a very good example. They can put David Lammy in as Deputy Prime Minister. They can put Shabana Mahmood in as Home Secretary. And people say, oh, yeah, she can clamp down on the Tommy Robinson. No. I don't think she's going to do that. This is me looking really stupid in about 7 days' time, isn't it? I don't think she's going to do that. I think she's going to let that whole thing go. She's not going to touch it. I think she's going to talk about how well it was run, how great it all is. I think what the government is trying to do is endear us into Islam, endear us into the Muslim population. Look how great they all are. Look how great she is. Muslim woman. supporting this fascist right-wing Tommy Robinson march. Muslims must be all right. They must be the same as us, mate. They must be all the same as us. Don't buy it. Not for a second. Do not buy it for a second. All right? They are here to take over. Fundamentally, 100%. As a Christian man, I'm telling you right now, you go and read about it. There is nothing. These people are not bringing, and I say these people, I don't want to label all of them because I know some Muslims and very nice people. And individual Muslims are nice people, but they will put their religion, I call it an ideology, by the way, it's not religion. They will put that always before the state. They will always look after their own before they look after the state. Now, I go around and pick up litter in my area all the time. All right, that's what I do. It doesn't matter who's dropped that litter. It doesn't matter. I clean up the area for everyone because I believe in looking after the country first, not my religion first. And that's why I think they put her in there. The woman is despicable. It's a disgrace as far as I'm concerned, because I think they want us to turn around and go, oh, look, we've got a hardliner in there. Is a Muslim in there. Let me know what you think in the comments, guys. Let me know what you think.